We Caucasians are Hebrews. The Jews are not. The Jews are actually Canaanites. They descend from the Canaanite people, later known as Edomites. And it was these Edomites who staged a coup during the reign of John Hyrcanus. And we're talking, his time was around 120 or 130 BC. Okay.
So it was well established when Jesus got on the scene then.
Yes, it was the scribes and Pharisees had established themselves as the reigning most powerful religious sect in Judea for a good 120 years. And you'd have to say 150 years by the time of his ministry. Okay. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, go ahead. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Go ahead.
From around 121 BC, that was the year in which the first non-Judahite male was circumcised under John Hyrcanus. Now, John Hyrcanus was the legitimate Judahite king at the time.
So this wasn't ancient practice. This was fairly about 120 years BC. It's when it started.
And what happened was, see, the Judahites had been having wars, a series of wars. First of all, they had the Greek occupation, and the Maccabees were able to throw off the Greek occupation and reestablish an independent country again. But while that was going on, they were still having wars against the Arabs, against the Edomites, against the Samaritans, and from any all invaders. Okay, and the Romans
and who were the Maccabees?
The Maccabees were the legitimate Judahite kings. Okay, they were the legitimate Judahite kings. So and John
that had gotten usurped from the religious body.
Yes,
as far as power running things.
Yeah. Well, here's how it happened. Okay. John Hyrcanus had made a league with Herod. Actually, even before Herod, he had made a league with Antipater, Herod's father. Okay. Antipater was an Edomite. Okay, not a Judahite and not an Israelite by any stretch of the imagination. He was an Edomite, and Edom was the enemy of Judah at the time. Okay. But Antipater was a very wealthy man. Of course, he was what we would call a proto-Jew. Okay, a proto-Jew is an Edomite who has not yet become a Jew. Okay. You can become a Jew by pretending to be a Judahite or pretending to be an Israelite. Okay? That's the true definition of a Jew. A Jew is someone who pretends to be an Israelite. Okay? So, in the year 121 BC, right after John Hyrcanus had a victory over the nation of Edom, which the Greeks call Idumea, I-D-U-M-E-A, what he did was he made the Edomites an offer. He said, either you allow yourself to be circumcised and become a citizen of our country, or we kill you. Okay? But now this was a violation of Deuteronomy 7, which says we true Israel shall not make any covenants with Edomites or with Canaanites. Okay? So by making this covenant with the Canaanites, he violated God's law. And he began, what he did was he actually invited the parasitic nation of Edom to come in and start usurping authority. And that's exactly what happened, okay? Because under Antipater bribed Julius Caesar, gave Julius Caesar a whole lot of money, yes, to install his son Herod as the governor of Galilee and his other son Phasaelus as governor of Judea. Okay, so with this huge bribe, he secured the cooperation of the Roman military, okay, against Judah. And this was all John Hyrcanus' fault because he never should have made a league with an Edomite, which was a violation of God's law, okay? But as a result of violating this law, the usurpers came in, okay?
So the rightful de jure
the Judahite
rulers
right
had they conspired against them and usurped their authority, and now there's a de facto regime in place.
That's a de facto non-Judahite regime. What happened was, after John Hyrcanus died, his natural heir, Hyrcanus II, his son, would have come to the throne, except that Herod assassinated him.
Now, if we were to say this has continued up till now, then we can be real confused about prophecy and what's yet to come, because we keep projecting that on the wrong group. Would that be
exactly? Exactly. It was because this was the beginning of the Jewish impersonation of Judah. Okay, because what we're talking about is Edomites, not Judahites. Edomites, who are of a completely different ethnicity, did not have the same religion whatsoever. They were Baal worshippers. In fact, they still are. The rabbis of Judaism are still Baal worshippers. They simply pretend. What they did was they incorporated the law of Moses, grafted the teachings of Moses upon their Baal worship. Okay, and it still exists today. It's called Kabbalah.
Oh yeah, okay.
Okay, Kabbalah is nothing but witchcraft. That's all it is. And so they grafted the teachings of Moses onto their Baal religion, and that's what Judaism is. Okay? Because Judaism is nothing but a pretense of obeying the laws of Moses. What they do is, and of course it's the Talmud, the real basis of their religion is the Talmud, not the Torah. Okay? They pay lip service to the Torah, but they practice the Talmud.
So there are other documents like Dead Sea Scrolls that match up with all this information.
That's right. And in fact, Josephus, he tells us in his histories of Judea, okay, that the true Judahites in those days were actually the Essenes. The Essenes were a true Judahite sect that remained separate from the Pharisees and remained separate from the Sadducees. The Sadducees were a sect that was being Hellenized. They had made a league with the Greeks and wanted to share power with the Greek occupation, and that's how the Sadducees got started. Okay, the Pharisees, they had a start around the same time. They actually began as a Judahite sect, but they were subverted and incorporated under Herod. Okay, and what Herod did was that once he became governor, and after he assassinated Hyrcanus II and took over the country completely, he murdered all of the Sanhedrin. He eliminated all of the Judahite priests that were in the Sanhedrin and put Edomites in their place. Okay? Like I said, this is history that is not talked about anywhere. Okay? And on my website, let me just refer people to my website. It's www.anglo-saxonisrael.com. anglo-saxonisrael.com, and I have at least a dozen articles on the intertestamental period, detailing the history of how the Judahite nation was subverted and usurped by Edomites, who are today's Jews, pretending to be Israel. Okay? And there's nothing about this in history books, encyclopedias, etc., because it's all been erased. As I pointed out last week, when the Jews from the Pale moved to America, they started buying up the encyclopedia companies, and they started eliminating articles about the Khazars. Okay? Because the Jews don't want anyone to know that they're not Israelites. They don't want people to know that they're in fact Khazars and not Israelites, okay? So they had to eliminate those articles from the encyclopedias. So your older encyclopedias, if you are lucky enough to have an encyclopedia from 1902, let's say, that will contain articles about Khazars, but later editions will not. See, because the Jews didn't control the operation yet, okay? But once they take control of an operation, they will start editing and deleting articles that are important for the rest of us to know, okay? And so, and in fact, even recently, I've had Jews tell me that they're not really Khazars. They're all Sephardim. I said, no, you're not. 95%